It's been an amazing walk today. We've walked with quite a large group of people from Jedburgh over to Melrose, and the conversations have been rich. The people have been a great group of people, just opening up, sharing. My wife has a phrase that you need to have quantity of time with people before you get quality of time, and that's been our experience on the whole walk, that as we walk with people over half an hour, half a day, the conversations become richer and richer and richer. So as you know, the whole thing is #one man walking, a million talking, and we had hoped that we would bring particularly suicide and mental health into a place where the population were much more comfortable discussing these topics. And I think in some way that's been achieved. So as we set off from Land's End, a couple approached us. So here we are just setting out on our journey. And a couple approached us, a couple in their 50s, I would have thought. And she had tears rolling down her cheeks, and she said, "I see that you're a suicide charity. You know, my baby sister died of suicide when she was 15 years old, and that's over 35 years ago. And as a family, we've never talked about her. We've never talked about suicide. We've never talked about what happened. And I'm going to go home and talk about my sister and celebrate her life." We have unabashedly shared Cameron's story, and we've made it very clear since Cameron died that he died by suicide. And that's a fundamental statement for me, because shocking as it is, I have to accept that my son died by suicide. And the reason that's important is he didn't die by a tragic accident. He died by suicide. And the suicide grieving journey is completely different from any grieving that I have ever done in my life. And the families that are left behind, the starting point for them is having to accept that it was a suicide. And to get to that point, you have to swim through this guilt and this shame, this difficulty, this struggle. But it's only when you get to that point of accepting and realising this was a suicide. I don't understand why Cameron took his life. I don't understand what lies behind that, but I have to accept that he took his life. And that's the point of starting the grief journey. And so for me, it's really important that I say to you that Cameron took his own life. 8 months after Cameron died, I went through my own suicidal crisis. So for people who are listening into this, let me just say emphatically that I have some understanding of what that feels like. And in many ways it's been helpful for me to understand part of the journey that Cameron was on. So I understand what it feels like to be walking through glue or treacle and feeling a sense of inevitability. And it's a horrible place to be. And so into that came psychological services and offered real hope to me. And it was the consultant psychiatrist that I saw at the time, and I say that unashamedly because I now speak very openly about the journey that I've been on, and it's so important that we do that. So we talk readily about ingrown toenails and appendicitis, but we don't talk about our mental health, and we really have to change that. That narrative has got to change if society is going to move forward. And it was the consultant psychiatrist who said to me, "You need to find a way through the guilt and shame of all of this. It's a logical guilt and shame, but it's part of the journey of suicide grieving." And her advice to me was, find a community of empathy. And so I started going to survivors of bereavement by suicide. And I walked into the meeting that night. The first time I went to the meeting, 42 people in the room, 75% of the group had lost sons. And I can't tell you what happened that night, but something deep inside my heart said, I can do this, I can get through this, as I heard the story of other people.